everyone. This is Housing in Houston podcast, episode 3. I am your co-host, Mariela Aguirre with Terra Residential Services.
And I am your other co-host, Kayla Ewald with First American Title. And we're so excited for our special guest today. His name is Rodney Washington. He is with United Water Restoration Group of Missouri City. How you doing, Rodney?
I'm great.
Welcome.
Yeah, this is cool.
Thanks for being here. I know you are extremely busy right now after the hurricane and probably preparing for the storm next week. I think we're supposed to have. So thank you for taking your time to be here with us.
So let's get into it. What is it that United does?
So, United Water Restoration Group of Missouri City, we are a 24-hour emergency service water restoration business. We service the greater Houston area, but obviously with the name Missouri City, that's where we're based out of. So water mitigation, what does that mean? When I describe it to people, most of the time I tell them it's when your house floods out, right? Pipes break, you've got water in the home, you got to have someone to come in there and do the mitigation is what it's called. We also do fire restoration. If your house is burned down or have fire damage, or if you've got smoke damage, we'll come in and clean, get the smell out, get you back to whole. And then the last part is mold remediation. Everybody, we live in the state of Texas. Mold is a big deal. People they get a little fearful when they hear the word mold. Some of it's not so bad, but some of it is kind of serious, and you do need to deal with it. So companies like ours come in and take care of that for you.
Awesome. Is that one of those situations where it's more not if, but when type of situations?
In terms of mold?
Yeah.
I'd say that's probably a yes, but a no. It's probably a bad way to answer this as a mold remediation company, but mold is everywhere, right? So you're gonna have mold. You're gonna have mold inside your home in certain places. The issue with mold is when you have the levels are elevated in your home. So you go outside. It's called a MAC, right? A mold assessment consultant. That's not what I do. We do mold remediation, but a MAC will come in and they'll do the testing. They'll do surface testing and air quality testing. And it's in a situation where you have either smells or you see potential mold or you're starting to feel illnesses. That's when you should start to have concern in regards to mold. MAC comes in, they do all the testing, and we come in and do the remediation. But the point I was making is when the MACs come in, really what they're looking at is the mold levels. They're going to take testing samples outside, and they're going to come in and take them inside. If the levels inside are higher than they are outside, then it's our job to come in there and clean that environment and get those levels back either level or below. So that's where we come in.
Makes sense.
Cool.
Makes
So
sense.
as you can tell, the level of experience here, there's expert level here. So tell us, how long have you been doing this?
So United, we'll say UWR.
Thank you.
So UWRG of Missouri City, we've been open about 3 years now, somewhere there. And I've been in the industry about 3 years. But when I speak, I think with a level of I don't want to pat myself, but a level of intelligence because my background.
Right.
Prior to the restoration industry, my first career was a insurance adjuster. So I was the guy on the other side. I was the guy, to you homeowners, I was the guy not wanting to pay you. No, I shouldn't say that. Right?
No, you should say that because that's what you were doing.
But no, as the adjuster, I was the guy that pretty much held the purse string, that I was the one making payments, and I was the one maybe pushing back and challenging contractors. And it is warranted in some situations. I don't want it. Sometimes our relationship with insurance can be contentious, but it shouldn't be because we're there for the homeowner. So anyway, my background was insurance as an adjuster, and I left and went to the oil industry for about 12 years after that. But it's like riding a bike. Right, you're not going to forget the knowledge, the skills, the things you learn. You come back in, you get certain licenses and certifications you need to be able to conduct your business. And once I did that, I mean, it's just waking back up.
Right? Is there something that happened that made you get back into the business from being out for those 12 years in the oil and gas?
So we get into my story.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, let's get into my personal story. So was in insurance doing claims, and I'm just going to be honest with you, I didn't really enjoy being an adjuster. You're dealing with people at their worst, and a lot of times people even the homeowners at times can have a contentious relationship with the insurance adjusters because you are the guy that unfortunately at times has to say no as the adjuster. So it wasn't like the most exciting job as well, and then the claim loads were high, and that's a whole nother story. But again, living in Houston, you get an opportunity to work in the oil and gas industry or medical in Houston, it's probably a no-brainer,
Right.
right? The golden handcuffs is what they call them. So I went into that, did that, but 2020 happened.
Okay.
Right? COVID.
A lot of us.
Yeah, COVID came, and before I jump to the COVID story, all my time and career experience in insurance, and when I was in the oil industry, I always was trying to do something on the side. I always had little side ventures and businesses that I was, trying to get off the ground, but I was never fully invested in it. I didn't have like the structure to really take it off the ground. So when 2020 came, I'm not going to mention the names of the companies. I don't want to get into that, but the company that I was with, they decided to do a worldwide layoff. And from what my understanding is, it was 20,000 people worldwide. It was I don't know if you guys remember when the oil price was like negative or something. It just got really bad. So they laid off 20,000 people worldwide. And I was luckily one of those people, right? So I was, because they did me the favor to kind of push me to do things I'd already been talking about doing anyway. So they did that favor for me. And one of the things that I felt it was a testament of maybe of my fortitude was when I was laid off, the day I was laid off, it was August 28th, 2020. I remember getting that email a couple of days later. He's got a meeting invite with your boss in HR. And it's like the writing's on the wall. So I get off that call, and you can go check the records. Not the current LLC that I have, but my first LLC, I filed with the state to form that entity either that same day or the next, right? So it was like sink or swim here. It's like, what do you do in a pressure situation? So it was a pressure situation for me. My wife's looking at me, what are we gonna do?
I bet she was.
As a man, you're like, how am I gonna feed my family?
Right.
So my natural reaction was like, well, I'm gonna survive, right? So filed the LLC, and as I mentioned before, I was doing some different ventures and stuff like that anyway. So I was leveraging some of that and some of the reputation I had built. I was kind of handy. I'm kind of handy with my hands. I used to build like custom built-in cabinetries and different things like that. So sorry about that. So I was leveraging, what I was putting out on social media. Friends and family were like, hey, can you build this? Can you do that? So I formed the business and said, hey, we're just going to put some structure to this. So long and short, you're doing that, but it's like you need some real structure to what you're doing. So that's kind of how I ended up down the pipeline of doing franchising. And I don't even know where this started. What was the original question? Because I just started telling my story.
What made you get back into it?
Okay, yeah, good.
What made you get, which we love the story, but what made you get back into it?
Okay, good. So I'm on track. So basically, I saw what I was made of, and I jumped out there and I did that. But part of it was when you didn't, like all the other times, I didn't have a real structure to what I was trying to do, and I knew I needed structure. So I'm literally on a job site. A buddy of mine does the buying and flipping houses, right? And so he does that. So on part of what I was doing, also contracted out to him, I was project managing some of those, because backstory, I was a project manager in the oil business as well. So I was managing some of those projects for him. So I'm at a job site and the guys are working, and I'm just kind of looking on my phone, and I see this franchise actually pops up on my timeline. United Water pops up on my timeline. I'm like, I remember this industry. I remember the need for it, the value that it has, and obviously, the profit margins. It can be profitable because I was writing those checks to the restoration company. So I knew what the industry was, and I knew that it's a demand and it's not going to go away, right? As long as people have homes, they're going to have damage. They're going to have water. They're going to have fire. They're going to have mold or whatever else that's going to need to be built back and mitigated when they have damages. So long and short, I saw that. I went down the whole rabbit hole of franchising, and I looked at some other franchises as well. But I was going down that rabbit hole, and I realized that franchising, one, is a whole industry in itself that I was not aware of. But people buy franchises, you build them. So your exit strategy is sell them or pass it down to kids or whatever it may be. So I was like, okay, this is interesting, because I thought about franchise. All I thought about was Chick-fil-A, Subway, McDonald's. Like, if you asked me, those probably the three I'm going to name. And then I started realizing like Billy Bob's tow trucking franchise, all kind of stuff out there. So anyway, so long and short, back to this, interviewed some different franchises and end up settling back with UWR, went out and visited them, did our whole franchise, meet the team day and all that kind of stuff you do through franchising. And, it's been a good fit. So that short version is.
So you talked about being an insurance adjuster and how that's when people were going through the most difficult time of some lives. Do you feel like being where you are now, do you love what you do now? Is it completely a different feeling? Do you feel like you're helping people during those hard times now?
Yes, I do. And I also understand the other side now, which I think that's a value in for me to be able to represent my clients because, I'm not the one all the time, day to day on the job site, but that's what I try to instill into my team, right? To, approach the customer, the job, the situation with a level of empathy for what they're going through, right? You may not fully understand it, but you are empathetic to the fact that they're going through something. You need to handle them with care. And I think my guys and my team are learning kind of through how I speak about the process and how I approach the process, and that trickles down to how we treat the customer. So yeah, it's more rewarding on that side. It's still stressful because there's other variables that come with it now, right? I'm the owner now, right? And outside of just the restoration and mitigation part, owning the business is a whole nother level of stress, a whole nother beast, in itself. So. So I don't get the reward of just saying, oh yeah, I helped somebody today. It's like, okay, my team did that. I'm planning for the future. How do I build budget out, and how do I do this, and how do I go somewhere, get some training and learn how to be a good CEO and all that kind of stuff. So it's but it's yes, the short answer is it is a level of reward though to be able to know we're helping these people and getting them back to whole.
Yeah, awesome. So in connection to helping people, so we know hurricane season is still among us.
Yep.
And it doesn't end until it goes closer to November. So what preventive actions can homeowners and investors with their properties keep in mind, during the season?
You can't stop Mother Nature, right?
Right.
So these 100-mile-an-hour winds are going to come. So all you can do is really be prepared to how you, I guess, react or respond. I'd say respond versus react. You can respond better if you're prepared, right? So things like making sure where your policy information is, important documents. We really try to tell people if they're asking to, have them somewhere in a safe place, in a safe, a waterproof safe, things like that. Your insurance policies, birth certificates, any valuable information like that. And in today's world, have a digital copy, right? Have a digital copy of all that. I'd also say, most people are pretty hands off with their policy, and they have no idea what type of insurance coverage they have until they have a loss.
Yep.
And the thing we run into most is people are underinsured. And I get it, right? In today's world, your premiums are so high. Most people, because I did it in my own house, right? My own house, I took a higher deductible so I could lower my premium. But I did it knowing that if I have a loss, I can mitigate my loss, right? Everyone doesn't have that option. So we run into a lot of people that are underinsured. So making sure you've got insurance or enough insurance, or if you choose to have a higher premium, you're going to have lower coverage, understand that you need to put away for a rainy day. I had an excellent client a couple of weeks ago, had this whole conversation with her, and she was like, yeah, her deductible was like $13,000. I was like, no, you make sure you kind of put away for that. And she was like, oh yeah, man. She's like, I'm prepared for this day. Not expecting a loss every year or something, but she knew she had enough rainy days set aside to cover that deductible. So,
and I love that you bring that up, because we are actually going to have an insurance agent on the podcast next episode to piggyback on that, because I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, especially right now where insurance is so finicky. That market on itself, a lot of agencies are pulling out or not doing the right coverage or any type of coverage. So they're being more picky with the type of portfolios they're taking in as well.
Absolutely. In my background with insurance, I mean, I understand it.
Of course.
And then as a business owner, obviously I'm not as large as an insurance carrier, but I understand the decisions they have to make. It becomes difficult when you're forking out millions upon millions every year, and when these seasons are happening. I can get into my opinion about, what we should do as a country, as a society to kind of cover all that, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
We love it. We'll have you back. We'll have you back for that conversation. So when you're preparing and when you're getting ready for these storms, are there any other people or vendors or referral partners that these consumers should be partnering with to prepare?
So we have a program, we call it our Ready program at
Okay.
WR Missouri City. Don't ask me to recite every meaning of that whole acronym, but the last of them for Ready for us, the Y stands for your preferred vendor. And that's specific to UWR Missouri City. That's not something that UWR as a whole has done corporately, but basically we're like, hey, reach out to us in advance, build a relationship. You can go to our website, you can fill out a deal where your contact information is out there, and we'll reach out to, that client list when events take place. Or if we're not reaching out, you'll have preferred, right? When the event takes place, because the reality of it is when these storms hit, ask anybody that has damage, when you start calling mitigation companies, the first thing they're going to tell you, we got a waiting list, right? Because we have a waiting list. The storm hits on a Monday. Was it a Monday when it hit?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, probably about Wednesday or so, we had a waiting list.
Wow.
People like, hey, the power situation with an issue, right? So we couldn't react unless we're riding around with generators. I don't ride around with a generator. So couldn't do anything there. So your list is getting longer and longer. So, we're going to have to get to you when we can. So if you can, all restoration companies don't do this. I'm sure some people are going to copy my idea, Lynn.
I know.
But yeah, if you can kind of, establish that relationship with someone and that, they kind of treat you as a preferred customer when you call me, I'm going to get there and I'm going to treat you as a priority client. I think that's beneficial, specific to UWR.
I love that. I love that. So what he's saying is when you are preparing for these storms and you have Rodney and his team at your back, he has everybody that you need. He has referral partners that he trusts. So you are taken care of in all aspects.
Yes, absolutely. You cleared that up because I didn't fully answer your question. So yes, we have.
I summarized what you said.
We have great general contractors that we have really good, strong relationships with here in this community. Plumbers, you name it, home inspectors or whatever, roofers. Like within my peer group and my friends, I'm like the guy people call and say, hey, do you know a guy?
Yeah. You're the connector.
Honestly, yes, I know a guy. Yes, I do. I know a guy.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned community. So in regards to location-wise, what is your geographical bounds of where the services that you take care of?
So me specifically, being the UWR Missouri City, I'm the smallest franchise here in the Houston area. There's three of us, about to be four of us. I'm the smaller of them. So I specifically own Missouri City, Sugar Land, and Stafford. But I can work pretty much the entire Houston Metroplex area unless it's already owned by another franchise. Any franchises work that way. You own territory. So the short of that is I work the Houston area, right? And if there's limitations, we've got great working relationships with our other franchisees in the Houston area. We'll partner up on jobs if we need to. Make sure we pass you off to someone if we can't do the work. I trust those guys. They're going to do just as well or better than we would do.
Okay.
And so just to talk about it a little bit more, the services that you provide, it's water restoration, it's mold. I know we've spoken before about sewer backup. What about the junk removal? Is that a part of that or is that separate? I know we've had side conversations about it. So what other services are we?
That's primarily it. Junk removal for me as a business owner. That's a revenue stream that I'm looking into getting to. As of right now, we remove our junk, right? When we did a demo in your home, we have to do that work. We'll remove things like that, but we don't actually just come out for the junk removal service. But it is something that UWR Missouri City will be adding to our portfolio. So if you do have a need for that, go ahead and call us. Go ahead and call us now.
Yeah. No, I know I can attest to the mold consultation or your first initial mold inspection because I know you went out to one of my investment properties and I remember you did a thorough review of it. Luckily, I didn't have mold. That's awesome. But you did a great job of making sure that it was thorough analysis and then giving me a report back. So I do appreciate that. So that was really good, especially now with whole Beryl situation with a lot of people did get a lot of flooding and all that. And more than likely to come soon. I know we're going to get a lot more rain here in the forecast. So I know it's going to be a challenge.
I think that's a great testimony as well, knowing that Rodney went out there, his team went out there to check for the mold. And he didn't just say Mariela and her investment property had mold. He was honest about it. He was transparent about it. And he's not just going to go for the job itself. He's going to make sure you're taken care of.
Just to educate your audience on that too. So what we at UWR Missouri City, we call it our mold prevention assessment is what we do. Because there's, I think I talked about it earlier, the way mold is structured, especially in the state of Texas, you'll have the mold consultants who do testing, and then you have the remediation companies who come in and remove it. And you cannot do both on one job, right?
Interesting.
Right. So I'm not licensed to do testing. I'm licensed to do remediation. But if I could be licensed to both, but I can't do both on one job. So when I go out to look, I'm doing a visual assessment. Obviously, like I talked about earlier, the signs, visual, if you smell it, if you see it. So I'm going to look for things like that. And then I'm also looking for moisture, right? And that's the thing we talk about mold prevention assessment is we're looking for moisture and letting you know, hey, if this area is wet, we're finding moisture here. You want to prevent this, so you need to mitigate those damages. You can use us or anyone else, but I'm telling you, this is wet, so we need to do something about it.
For sure. And
Let me ask you about that. Where at in the house would the moisture be? Is it going to be in the sheetrock, in the walls, in the floor? What are the areas that the ceiling?
Any of the building materials, anywhere. It just really depends on the source. So if you've got a roof leak, obviously you're going to have it on your ceilings, potentially your walls. Pipe leaks could be floors, walls, where it just really depends on what that source of that water. And water is going to follow a path of least resistance. It's going to go where it wants. So like when we go and assess a loss, sometimes it's weird where the water is. Because it's just going to travel. It's going to find, ways to travel. So you might be looking at a floor and it's wet over here, but it's dry over here. So our job is to come out, and in our industry, we call it moisture mapping, to understand where the moisture is. Once you've pinpointed that, now you strategize a plan to mitigate it. But to answer your question, it could be in any of those areas. And then, one of the things we educate people go into losses. And I remember during what was the hurricane a couple of years ago where it was flooding out?
Ike, Katrina,
it was
Harvey.
Harvey, I think.
Just start listing all the hurricanes.
I know.
Right. It was so bad. And then I remember in my neighborhood, people were going around and helping their neighbors, and they were doing everybody's seen us do the 2-foot flood cuts or 3-foot or 4-foot. The reason behind those flood cuts is usually either if it's contaminated water, meaning if it's come from outside, or if it's come from the sewage, that's going to be a category 3 water, which most cases you want to just remove that. It needs to come out of the home. But a lot of times too, what you'll see even on a standard water loss, you can see those cuts on exterior walls. And I'm talking about this because you're asking about building materials.
Absolutely, yes.
So if you've got a exterior wall, they're going to have insulation on that wall. And we're not going to be able to dry that insulation. So if it's gotten wet from a pipe or something behind there, we can't get that hot, dry air to that insulation. So we're going to cut that sheetrock, pull that insulation out. And now we're focused on drying out the framing, the base plates, and the studs in your wall, and any remaining sheetrock and stuff like that. We're going to focus on drying that out.
Awesome. So let's take it back a few notches for basics 101 regarding mold. For my first time home buyers, they just bought a brand new home. They never owned a home before. So describe what it looks like when the first signs, and also the smell.
I was going to ask, what is the smell?
Yeah,
He keeps saying smell.
How do you describe it? Maybe like a little kind of it's hard to describe it. Come on, you guys are smart.
Okay. So I'm thinking of like when you leave your clothes in the laundry for like, if you're like me, 2 days, and then you have to rewash them because it's that smell that will never get out of the clothes if you don't rewash them.
Yeah, that's pretty much the odor you'll start to smell. And quick nugget of information, it takes about 48 hours or so for microbial, we won't say microbial. It takes about 48 hours for secondary damages to set in. So basically what that means, secondary damage in our industry is going to be mold, mildew, and rot.
Okay.
Right? It's not just mold. It's if you don't do anything, if you got a water loss in your home, and if you don't do anything about it, you're going to get potentially secondary damages. Mold, mildew, or rot.
Okay. Does it spread? Also, once if it's an area that's been soaked for 2 days, and then does it eventually, if you don't do anything about it, does it eventually spread?
In terms of the mold or the moisture?
Either.
I mean, the moisture it could, just like anything, especially like sheetrock, it's like thick paper. It's going to soak it and absorb it. So yeah, the spot could get bigger and expand. Your building materials, if you got wood floors, those are going to soak and expand and get worse. So I won't say like, if you've mitigated the source, I won't say it's just going to continue to grow and expand, but the areas that have been affected by that loss can get worse and worse, right? Again, the secondary damages, wood floors are a big deal. If you don't do anything about those wood floors quickly, real wood, you can salvage sometimes if we can dry it. It's very difficult to dry, but if we can dry it, you can sand and refinish those. You don't hurry and get that water off of your waterproof vinyl floors,
Yes.
and water gets underneath it. Yeah, it's waterproof as long as it stays on the surface, right? Once it gets underneath those floors, we can't dry that, right? So those nice, pretty, what they call it, luxury vinyl.
No, the LVP, yeah.
Yeah, those LVPs, they got to come out because water got under it. It's not porous, so there's no drying it. It's got to come out.
So would you say in regards to, and now we're borderlining into more of a contractor response, but since you're familiar with it, regarding flooring, would you say tile might be a more durable, long-lasting?
So, in my opinion,
Me speaking as an investor,
in my opinion,
this is my opinion. This is not a water mitigation industry opinion. I would never put carpet or laminates, maybe a vinyl, but I would never put carpet or laminates in a wet area. Bathrooms and kitchens, I've seen homes with carpet there. And they used to do that in older homes.
Yeah.
Right. You would see that because when my wife and I, we bought a home that was built in the late 90s. So when we first moved in, one of our secondary bathrooms had carpet. This is not working.
Oh, it does not make sense.
Cut it out. We're taking that out. So I wouldn't put any of those type of materials in a wet area. Yes, I would put tile in wet areas. So if you're an investor and you're coming in and you're buying and holding your property, I would put materials in there that are going to be more durable, tiles, and you could go with the LVP. Just maybe try to avoid wet areas, in my personal opinion. Yeah.
Mariela, I have a question for you from a Terra residential standpoint. When you have all of your properties, how can you maintain and manage if there's water or mold happening inside? Do y'all do like a quarterly check? Do you just rely on the renter to tell you if something is happening?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we do our own assessment throughout the tenancy of the home. So before putting in a tenant, we do a move-in analysis report. It gives us a property condition of what the condition of it is right now. And then during the tenancy, once we have a renter in there, then yes, we do expect the renter to come back and tell us, hey, this is damaged, because also the inconvenience for them, right? So, oh, now this is damaged, so hey, come fix it. They're really quick about that. But then during tenancy, typically on month 9th or 10th, we'll go out there and do an actual official inspection, or not inspection, review. But then once move out time, then our guys go back in there and assess it again. So we have a secondary report of the condition at move out time. And so we're able to see, okay, kind of the history, right, of what happened before, during, and after. And so that's typically what we end up doing at Terra.
Cool. I like it.
I need to hire you guys.
I know, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, Rodney, why don't you, thank you again for being here with us. Why don't you tell them how they can get a hold of you? And you need to get a hold of him before the storms next week.
Yeah,
okay?
You don't want to be on the wait list.
You do not want to be on this wait list. So how can they reach you?
We're on all these social media platforms. What is our IG? UWRG Missouri City on IG. I think you can find the same way on Facebook. Telephone number 281-761-2022. What else we got? Website uwrgofmissouricity.com. Look us up. Follow us on social media. We try to do some regular posting, try to do some fun stuff there. So follow us, be engaged, and be educated as well.
Perfect. Well, again, I am Kayla Ewald with First American Title, your co-host.
And I'm your other co-host, Mariela Aguirre with Terra Residential Services. Thank you so much for watching.